Hey everyone, this is Attorney Andre. Stick to the end because I really want to know what you think. And what I'm talking about is a topic that is important to everyone. It's real estate prices because real estate prices are crazy high and everyone has been talking about it. Ramsey said it's an issue of supply and demand, that it's fundamentally simple, and that there is a shortage of houses on the market and there is a shortage of houses being built comparison to the people out there looking to buy.
In real estate in almost every city. In order for prices of anything to come down, supply demand curves have to shift.
Well, it turns out that's all fundamentally untrue, according to a new study published in April in the academic journal Housing Policy Debate. And that journal, that survey, it's essentially a survey, and it found that between the year 2000 and 2020, the US had a surplus of $3.3 million homes. Now, that's totally different than what Zillow showed in 2020, that there was a deficit of $4.5 million homes, or another survey from Realtor.com showing that between 2012 and 2023, there was a shortage of $2.5 million homes. So where is the discrepancy? Why is it that one place is saying that there is a housing surplus of $3.3 million homes, but all these other places like Zillow and Realtor.com are saying that there is a housing shortage, a housing deficit? Well, the general consensus is that the survey takes into account homes that are vacant. Technically, you can live there, but you don't know why they're vacant. They might be vacant because a landlord doesn't want to sell it or doesn't want to rent it out. Sometimes people hold on to pieces of property or they hold on to real estate because they think it's a store of value. Sometimes the house is like totally dilapidated. You can't live there. It's unlivable. Like it's got no walls. If you take a look at some places in Chicago or in Detroit, especially the Detroit area, there are parts that used to be totally booming, nice neighborhoods, and now the houses are burned down. Now it's impossible to live there, but technically, those are vacant homes. Technically, someone can live there. And if you count all of those homes, then sure, absolutely, there's a surplus. But the reality is, and if you look at the survey, and the survey even admits that disconnect is that there is a mismatch between the houses that are available, how much they cost, and the affordability of those houses that are available and how much they cost. So they call it an economic mismatch. But we all knew that, and that's actually what Zillow and that's what Realtor.com is pretty much saying in their surveys. They're essentially saying that, look, you have these houses that are about this average price, and people simply can't afford them, and that's why you have this quote-unquote housing shortage. And the reason why there's a shortage is because these are the houses in this particular area, and these are the people looking for houses, and the amount of houses available is far less than the people that are looking, otherwise known as a supply and demand situation. The survey in the housing policy debate takes into account all houses between 2000 and 2020 and which ones are vacant now, and doesn't consider the reason for their vacancies. But interestingly enough, the writers of this housing policy debate survey, they're saying that, well, what can we do? How do we fix this problem? And they say, well, one way to potentially fix the problem is to build more Section 8 housing, is to create more denser housing projects so you have urban sprawls. And that's one way to do it, sure. But it doesn't tackle the underlying root. The underlying root is always, and they even say this in the policy debate, in the survey, the underlying root is affordability. So there's two ways you track affordability. One, everyone makes more money, because if you've got more money, if everyone is making more money, then your affordability issue goes down. Another way is to make things cheaper. So how do you make things cheaper? Because that's really the more likely scenario. And there's two ways that I propose, or a few ways that I propose. One way is to lower the cost of goods, and therefore lower the cost of building. Because if your cost of goods goes down and the cost of building goes down, then you can charge less. You'll still get those same margins simply by lowering your prices if the cost of goods, if the cost of building, the cost of materials is substantially less. So that's one way to do it. And another way to do it is to make it cheaper to borrow money. And I'm not talking about interest rates here. I'm talking about, yes, sure, interest rates, you can work on that, but also reducing the average person's debt to income ratio. And the way that you can do that for younger people, for millennials and younger, is to talk about really student loans. Because the first time someone really gets into debt, the first time a young person really gets into debt is when they take on student loans. And it's not a small debt, it's a big debt, it's a huge financial burden. So, one way you can combat that is to make it the same kind of debt as other kinds of debt, which would and change the laws as it pertains to how schools implement that. Because if you can do that and you make it harder for students to get accepted, not accepted to school, but accepted to have this debt, if you start rejecting people and saying, look, we the banks, we are not going to loan you $300,000 to pursue a liberal arts degree in, I don't know, East Indian studies or some kind of crazy degree that doesn't translate to profitability anywhere. If banks say we're not going to lend to you because you're not a good candidate, then that would probably reduce the debt to income ratio, because all of the people that took on this debt, not knowing what they're doing, won't take on this debt. I mean, look at around what age people go to college, and look at around what age the drinking limit is, or the age where people are allowed to drink. There's a reason why 16, 17-year-olds aren't really allowed to drink. They don't make good decisions. Having someone sign up for a loan when they're that age, it's not a good decision. And the way you combat that is the same as anyone else. If I were to go and say, look, I want to buy a $20 million mansion because I want to impress all my friends and I want to get a whole bunch of new followers and I'm going to use this for content creation and everything, the bank would say, Andre, that is a very good idea that you have, but you're not going to do it with our money because we just can't approve you for that amount, for $20 million, for example. Well, it's the same thing. If someone has zero work history or very limited work history, no money in the bank, nothing to take from, absolutely, then surely a bank shouldn't be lending to these people, especially when their chosen degree is going to be something that's not marketable. So by doing that, you reduce the debt to income ratio of your average buyer, and therefore they would qualify for more competitive loans, and the loans would be more competitive as well. So really, those are the kind of strategies, and those are the kind of things that I believe could be done and should be done to fix this housing crisis. I do think it's a supply and demand issue, but I think it's more an economy issue. So I think both Zillow, Realtor.com, and this survey at the Housing Policy Debate Journal, I think all of them are wrong. They're all looking at it from a market perspective, saying that, look, there's either a housing surplus, there's a housing deficit, there's something along those lines, but no one's really looking at the underlying issue. And it's kind of glanced in both things, but it's never really tackled, and that's affordability. If you can uh, solve the issue of affordability both in the affordability of houses and the affordability of debt, I think you can find a solution. That's what I think. What do you think? I want to hear your thoughts. Tell me later. See you.